Can you guys hear me?
It's off mute.
Ask if they can hear us now.
Can you hear us, Sarah?
Yes, thank
Sarah?
you.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys.
No worries,
Okay.
thanks.
All right. Okay, next item is park round robin. Representatives will do a brief check-in on their parks. I thought maybe it might be a way to start that off. I could just kind of go through the parks from our spreadsheet, and we can go those item by item. And if we have any discussion on each one of them. The Creekside Park is Madeline's. Do you have anything new to report, Madeline?
No updates right now ongoing.
Okay. And the dog park is Sarah is the representative. Sarah, do you have any updates or items to discuss about the dog park?
No, everything looks good. I've been periodically going up to restock bags. Yeah, everything looks good. We are still wanting to get another poop bag station, which I think is in maybe the budget discussion more so than anything else, or like future projects, but all is well.
Okay. All right. I'm the representative for Finn Park. A couple items regarding Finn Park. I guess actually about three. The trees look really well. It looks like they're doing well, the newly planted trees. A couple hazardous trees have been removed, not actually in Finn Park, but kind of adjacent to it, right around the corner on 17th Street as it comes into Hagen. They had a couple cottonwood trees that were dead, and they were kind of leaning over the, I believe, Northwest Energy lines, and somebody came out, probably a contractor for Northwest Energy, and removed those. And then the other item I contacted Mike Maples about, and he checked into it, but there's a house kind of across the street that would be on the extended south end of Platt Avenue that has a PVC pipe coming from their property, and evidently there's a sump pump attached to it, and they must be pumping water out of their basement into the park. And I was a little concerned about that because we're getting kind of an extensive wet area there, just kind of on the very south end of the park. And I brought that to Mike's attention. And he said it's a situation where I guess they've been given permission to do that, because they're having water issues in their
Is that from
basement.
the mine, issue?
No, that's up on Grant.
Yeah, no, that's, this is down, just
Right.
off Platte.
Okay.
You occasionally you'll walk by and you see a little fountain coming out. As the pump kicks in, you can see a little fountain of water. I'm kind of concerned that, it's gonna become a wet, soggy area and, maybe a mosquito breeding ground area too. But he said that, they're actively working on trying to remedy that situation. He said it may take a little bit more time, but I think it's a situation we don't want to have as a long-term situation in Finn Park. The other, is the McGillen Airport Trails. Is that issue?
Yeah. I went up McGillen the other day, Mike's got it in really good shape in general. It's, a couple of things to note. I had a call from somebody. There's somebody coming to town and getting rid of their trash in the public
I've heard
dumpster.
about that.
And that's happening in several parks. And we don't know if there's something that could be done, a sign that says not for public dumping or under surveillance or can be fined. Just a thought. I don't know, Mike could have some input on that.
Okay, that's something we can bring up to Mike.
Yeah. The other thing I would like to bring up to Mike is there's a couple of erosion spots on McGillen Trail. They've done a really good job, but there's a couple of spots that could use some more rocks.
Okay, and then Pride Park.
Can I
don't have-
interrupt really quick, because it's about McGillen?
Sure, Sarah.
I think it's McGillen. It's the path that goes along the dog park, like along that same stretch, kind of behind the campground spots up to the rodeo. Is that still McGillen Trail?
No.
No, that's Rocky Fork, I think.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's Rocky Ford.
And I guess that's not even part of one of the parks, but I just noticed that there were a couple, we do kind of count it as the airport trails. Okay. I just noticed that there were a couple signs that were bolted to trees about keeping dogs on leashes that are saying that they're from the city of Red Lodge, like it has the city of Red Lodge logo on it. But I just thought it was interesting. Maybe it's common to bolt into the trunk of a tree, but I thought that was interesting. And then I just thought it was interesting that we haven't been made aware of that. And I guess my concern was that if it wasn't actually coming from the city, that somebody was using the logo and posting them up there. So does anyone know anything about them?
I noticed it too, but I didn't think anything about it really.
Generally not a good practice, so,
Right.
I can mention that to Mike Maples when he gets
Okay.
back, Sarah.
All right.
Okay, all right. Skate park, that's you, Rod?
Actually, it's not me.
Oh. Oh, that's you,
Yeah, I
Natalie.
said I'd do that since I'm there pretty much every single day.
Gets a lot of use.
Yeah. Mike said that, yeah, still wanting to seal it this year. I do want to check in with him because there's some more cracks and chips developing that we would want to deal with before they get big. So I'll check in with him and probably Kevin Bonk about that and see what can be done.
Yeah, he did say he wanted to get it sealed before winter, so.
Yeah.
Rotary Park, I have that blank, but, I don't mind being the representative for that. I'm in that park pretty much every day walking my newly acquired hound dog, which is the loudest dog in Carbon County, I think. I think the park looks good. The trees there, the newly planted trees are doing well. I'm always surprised about how much use that park gets,
Yeah.
all hours of the day. So, but other than that, I have nothing to report.
I do have one small report just from I manage properties along that boulevard, that
Mhm.
that
Park
block.
Avenue.
And notice a lot of folks using our trash cans And I'm not sure what the trash can situation is in Rotary Park. And it's usually people, but, and again, I'd rather they use the trash cans than litter.
Right.
Yeah,
But part of our issue is there's a lot of bears over there, and they don't latch the cans correctly when they're done using them. And so, do you guys, anyone know what our trash can situation is? Is there a dumpster over in the main parking area?
no, I don't think there's a dumpster
Okay,
in that park.
okay. Just something that,
Okay.
that might be worth considering, just,
Okay.
because it does, it gets a lot of usage, and specifically people walking their dogs, and as much as I don't mind sharing a can, I also don't wanna be cleaning up trash every week, and
Okay. We'll pass it on to Mike too. Um,
Are you gonna pass those?
yeah, I can do that. Van Dyke Park,
I
Rydell?
was, been walking up there recently, there is a lot of knapweed. It's everywhere right now, and, one of the other issues there is, cheatgrass.
yeah,
And so if we're gonna spray, I think the park should be closed for the appropriate amount of time, and notices should be put up. But, the other thing is, I know Northwestern contractor is supposed to be regrading the path where they rutted it out, but they haven't done that. Just wondering if we could get that done before the snow falls, 'cause it's, it would be covered, and yet it would, create perhaps an issue for people. And I would also like to add another bench,
Okay.
to the park there, so.
was, Northwestern supposed to be doing some seeding too?
Yes.
Apparently, something I read said they have done it, and now they're waiting to spray, for the seedlings to, germinate and grow, and so I don't really know what's happening there, but, and I don't know who knows.
It seems odd they would seed it before they graded it,
Well,
doesn't it?
well, the area that they really trashed is, flat,
Mhm.
and
Okay.
maybe they've seeded back in there, but the cheatgrass is moving in there as well.
Yeah,
As it will do. And, what I'm talking about is, near the road, the path near the road down from the observatory. They cut they opened the fence and they drove in down, by the power poles, and it was wet, I guess, and they really rutted out the path. So you've got these, big divots, to deal with. And I don't know if, Public Works just wants to get out there and take care of that.
okay,
Yeah.
I don't think Northwestern's going to.
okay,
And the fence probably also needs to be dealt with, because people are parking there, because they can get in. And, I'm not sure why the fence is even there, but it is, and so, maybe we need to stop that
Okay.
also in the future.
okay. Okay, excuse me. Coal Miners Park, Beth isn't here, but Beth did make a mention that she's concerned about the irrigation system at the two ball fields maybe being inadequate and needs some, maybe a redesign or some extra heads added to the system. It's getting pretty dry in places out there, and her concern is that the park and the ball fields are seeing increasing use, and to get droughty areas in the turf with increasing use, you can have, some turf that really suffers as a result. So that'll be something I'll, her and I'm sure she will bring that forward to Mike. Then we have Lions Park. Madeline, is that you?
Yeah. Sorry, Captain Coal Miners. There's still a few repairs that need to be done at Moose Trails that I need to check in with Mike about. But other than that, I haven't really been paying attention to anything going on there.
Farmer's Market looks good.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll go in a couple, or a month.
Okay. And then we have Highway 212, Chelsea,
So, yeah, I know that there was some efforts done earlier this summer, and I know that the mayor's currently working on figuring out how we can work on negotiations with the state as well as our Public Works Department to see some maintenance coming in from both sides. So keep you guys posted as that comes along, but on a whole, it's still there. It's good. And it does look much better than it did earlier on this summer, so.
yeah, especially the circle, the
yeah.
roundabout.
Yeah. And so, and even some of the little side patches, again, it could still use a lot of work, but I think if we really put some energy into it in the spring to do some maintenance on it, and maybe you look at some options that are lower maintenance, as beautiful as that has been over the past few years without the volunteer efforts to do it, which takes substantial volunteer time in a fairly dangerous space to do it, it can be a little tricky.
Yeah,
Spring is probably the ideal time to work on that, not midsummer, when we have lots of traffic.
yeah, good point. Okay. And, I guess that's pretty much it. Any other areas that I've left out that we need to cover? You know, going back to Coal Miners Park, and as long as we're talking about the newly planted trees, those trees are doing surprisingly well too. I think we've only lost one tree. You know, and when you look at the soil that they're planted in,
Right.
you know, we'll find out next spring how they come out, I guess.
Stronger than ever.
Yeah, probably stronger
Real
than
hardy.
ever. Probably the toughest trees in Montana. And then, again, going back to the trees, Hagan Avenue, we planted 4 trees there, and they're all doing well as well. In addition to that. So the next item, any questions from the audience or anybody regarding those items? Okay, the next item is the discussion regarding the Field Park Tennis Court conditions and remedies. And I'll again read the little report that Mike gave us, and then I know we have some members of in the audience here that would like to make some comments as well.
Can I say one more park thing before we
Sure.
move on? Did we say Pride Park?
Well, maybe I skipped over
I
Pride
think
Park.
we did a brief skip over when there was.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, Pride Park.
Do we have a Pride Park person?
I don't have it been listed.
Okay. Does anyone
I had
know?
sort of volunteered, to be liaison between that and the garden club, but I haven't really done much with the garden club, so I can do Pride Park if that's helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, good. No report now, though, Sarah?
No, sorry, only what we
That's all right.
talked about last time, that bench getting fixed, which was good.
Okay, very good. All right, so now we're back to the Field Park Tennis Court conditions and remedies. The report that Mike sent us says that he met with James Howe regarding tennis courts. We have a plan to address the remaining slab defects before winter. Thanks to Jim for all his work on the courts. And I've noticed you out there too. There's this crazy guy on his hands and knees out there on the courts. So I appreciate your work out there. It's a heck of a volunteer effort.
It's heavy use.
It gets a lot of use. James, do you have anything you'd like to add to, you know, maybe give us a little bit more information on the plans that you and Mike talked about?
Well, I talked to Mike about this, and I've talked to Lindsay Hoffman about this, and just what the basic situation with the tennis courts is that they haven't had a major renovation in more than 10 years. So the surface is just breaking down. And so we're facing a big ticket item to overhaul the surface and address the two major constituencies, which is pickleball and tennis. There aren't enough courts for Lindsay's tennis team to really hold an effective tournament. So unfortunately, girls just can't have a home court, which seems really sad that they have to go to Billings. But I don't know where we could expand to get 4 tennis courts.
Yeah.
We're really looking at about maybe, or Mike said $400,000 they spent at Shoto to, build state-of-the-art facilities. So I address just trying to keep the place together. That I've dealt with all the cracks on the playing surface, and there's still some peripheral cracks that are not on a playing surface that I'll deal with next year. There's a big tree root growing in on the side of one, the east court, that Mike will have his guys address and grind down the bump. There are 3 posts, tennis court posts, where the posts are set in a 3-foot-high concrete base. Well, the tennis court surface does not adhere to that concrete. So Mike's gonna have his guys cut out a 1-foot radius around these posts and, apply a polymer material to seal that, to keep the water from, getting into the subgrade, which is the real problem that I was trying to address by sealing up all the cracks.
Sure.
Just keep the water out of the subgrade. There's a drainage issue along the west side where the water comes off the road, off the sidewalk, off the lawn, and just drains onto the court. So I addressed with Mike about, and with Rod, about putting a swale in there. So the court, edge of the court is not the low spot. So Mike felt that, his guys could, cut in a French drain, which is, gravel, couple feet of gravel along the edge, and get the water to drain off to either side of the tennis court and not just dead end at the gate where it makes a lake now and not drain onto the court surfaces. To fix that asphalt problem that has rendered court 3 as, unusable for tennis is a big ticket item.
Yeah.
It really would mean just, Mike's feeling was, we just gotta cut the whole tennis court out of there and resurface the whole thing.
That must have been an attempt at a quick fix.
It was a
At one
quick
time.
fix, and it hasn't lasted.
Yeah.
It wasn't suitable fix, and the sinkhole that instigated the whole thing is reoccurring. I think it's the cellar from the old school that was probably just filled in with rubble.
Yeah.
It's my guess that it really has to be cut out and properly backfilled, and then, I don't know how much money we got.
Well,
We spent a lot of money on recreation since I've been here,
Yeah.
just 7 years, so.
well, water is the biggest threat to tennis courts, and, you know, the drainage down there, what I've looked at, looks like it's pretty, you know, pretty suspect. I mean, we're probably facing a total rebuild on the tennis court somewhere down the line.
That's been the plan for
a long time.
But there's never really been enough money budgeted for that, has there?
No.
Well, they had 40,000 for it,
Yeah.
and then they decided that
A
was
little less
kind
than
of gonna
400.
scratch
I
through.
think,
No.
yeah, I think that was budgeted when they thought they could just repair it, and then someone came
Yeah.
and looked at it, and they were like, nope, you gotta redo the whole thing to fill in that sinkhole.
And then I know there's been some concerns with it being school property versus city property.
That was
so,
a question I had.
Yeah,
I've heard that two conflicting reports or statements, that one is that that's actually school property still, and then the other report I've heard is no, that property had been transferred to the city. So Does anybody know what the status of the ownership is?
I
For the
heard
tennis-
that it was
for the
school owned.
You could look on Cadastral.
It says school.
Yeah, I think it's, that's what I thought too, so.
So has the school district ever been approached about assisting in repairs?
If I might, Barb Beck, yeah, so Lindsay, that he mentioned, is a tennis coach for the high school girls.
Yeah.
And when we were working with Lindsay a couple years ago, she said that the school might be able to come in with some funding. And some of us have been talking over a couple of years, actually, about fundraising to assist the effort. And I think we're enthusiastic to try to do that,
Mhm.
once we know there's some commitment to try to do the big redo. So I'll just lay that out there for
Yeah.
you. Tennis and pickleball players are interested in seeing this happen, and so we recognize that's probably gonna take financial contribution on our part,
Mhm.
and we would work on that. We haven't organized it yet, but, we could.
Okay.
Okay. I like the
Good to
idea of
know.
a team effort on it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can't commit for the school, certainly,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but they had said in the past that they thought they could contribute.
Something similar to what we did with the pool,
Mhm.
Yeah.
where we were able to raise a lot of private funds
Mhm.
Yep.
to get that done.
But they get a lot of use in the tennis programs, a fairly new program, isn't it?
Yeah, like 3 years.
This is we've gotten through 3 years, I help coach as well.
Oh,
do
yeah.
you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's doing really well. Our
Yeah, it looks like
numbers
it.
are more significant than some other sports. But there's, you have to supply a certain amount of numbers for a certain amount of years in order to tenure, and we haven't quite done that yet, so. But it is offering a sport to a particular group of girls that don't necessarily, attract to other sports, and so I feel like it's been a really nice thing. These girls, most of them, they either do cheerleading and tennis or just tennis for the most part.
Mhm.
So it's a pretty cool thing that they've been able to offer.
Good. It's great to see. It's good to see the number of kids out there.
Well, I just checked, it is school property.
It is school property.
Is there some kind of like management agreement or something, or who would know this? Would Dennison be the one to?
Honestly, I'd probably start with Lonnie. There
Yeah,
might be
probably.
some sort of MOU.
I would think there is something out there.
Yeah, there's gotta be something in terms of a shared agreement. And there actually might be something with the county just in the deed, depending on how that, so.
Well, is it, the whole park, school property?
Yes.
Okay.
The school part.
But obviously it's been managed by the city for,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For quite a
I've been
while.
here.
Be an agreement.
yeah.
It has to be.
But it seems like this should be a high priority for the Parks Board. And, you know, obviously, we don't have the money up front right now to do what really needs to be done. If we could limp through this fiscal year and try to get some prices and maybe do some budgeting for the next budget year, it seems like this would be a project that I think we should really support,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Do you guys have an active tennis club or something?
No, we don't have a club. We, locals play, people that spend the summer here that are, call themselves locals, play.
Yeah.
And then occasionally people
Someone-
passing through will play.
Yeah. I was just wondering if you could get a group formed like the pool did. That was pretty successful.
Pickleball has.
So pickleball,
Yeah.
yeah, we have probably actively playing, probably about 30 people. We have over 42 people on our contact list right now. And we play 4 times a week, and we get anywhere from, usually we play 2 hours, and we'll get anywhere from 12 to 20 people 4 times a week. So we're getting a lot of usage on these courts.
Yeah.
We talked about volunteering. I mean, James is probably our king of the volunteers here, but we also have other people too that have mentioned they'll step up with either fundraising or providing some private funds, and then also doing any type of work that's possible to help this, because we really see that the pickleball is the growing sport. It's the fastest growing sport in the United States. I mean, it's growing thousands % per year. When I first came here a year ago, there were probably maybe 6 to 8 people playing routinely pickleball. We're close now to 30 people playing in 1 year, so it's considerably growing. One other thing also that I'd like to mention as far as like the sports, offering, a lot of the schools, now a lot of middle schools and high schools are offering pickleball as a sport, either in gym swim class or as an intramural type of a sport. And that's something too that would benefit greatly from our enhancements on pickleball courts. And I think there's enough of us that would, I mean, I certainly would volunteer. I've been an instructor for almost 6 years. I'm certified to work with, you know, students that would like to learn to play pickleball. If that was something that we could get going. One of the things, I knew that we're gonna talk about the situation with the course, so I took liberty, if I could show you, this is kind of a diagram. And I still real, this is a diagram of a proposed 4 pickleball courts.
Actually, if you could you step to where we can see it on camera too, so folks at home can see the same thing?
Jim, where do you, would you like?
Just close over here, Roger.
Wait, want to point to, where do you want me?
Which one do you want to do?
Up there.
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh, you want-
there you are, you're in the shot.
Okay, okay, all right, here we go. Yeah, so right now we have 3 tennis courts, right? And where we're playing, right now what we're playing is we have the tennis, or the pickleball courts that we have one here, here, and here, and one over here. These are just the lines that have been painted in. And what I would like to see, and the pickleball club would like to see, is if we are going to be doing something with this, is make 4 pickleball courts. We'd have 2 tennis courts and 4 pickleball courts. And I've played on places where they've actually taken 1 tennis court, and you can easily put 4 pickleball courts on, because they're only 20 by 44 feet. So this is what I want just to present as far as for future planning purposes.
Now, the kind of playground is right over here on.
The playground would be, okay, so this is north, so the playground is right over, so the playground's right south.
It's like a
It's
playground.
east.
Well, this is on the west side.
That's the way.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
That's on the west side.
South would be like the actual park space,
Right.
east
So
would
the
be
ball
the,
field is south here,
yeah.
The street.
and the
Yeah.
playground is over here.
okay, yep, you're right.
Yeah, that's where, yeah,
Yep, that's,
yeah.
So we're needing more space for pickleball and tennis.
Right.
yeah.
You would struggle to run tennis on 2 courts.
You would
Yeah.
still be able to have a third tennis court, you see where that net would remain?
Right here?
Uh-huh, okay.
Yeah, so that,
I
you still have 3 tennis courts.
with the extra lines, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, see, what our thought would be, because we've talked to Lindsay, and because of the situation of the blacktop, they really can't play a game on there, but they use it for serving.
Yeah.
Practice serving. You could still do that, because that net would still remain there. Because that's gonna divide the 2 pickleball courts on the other side. So she could still use that, for students that want to be practicing serving, until they finally got the asphalt taken care of.
Mhm.
I just want to present this as.
What's your name? Sorry.
My name is Jeff Sheets. But I wanted just to present this as
Right.
a future possibility, and because of the increased usage of the
Can we
pickleball community.
expand the courts out into the green area, or is that pretty much a normal?
So it seems like there's a lot of enthusiasm and ideas for the courts, which is great. So like what would be the next step here?
Well, 2 things, and maybe you can speak to this better than me, but Lindsay is saying that the nets out there
The nets,
are
yeah,
horrible.
and that might be something to think about.
So maybe
before
you could
investing
come up with money for the nets,
Okay.
Okay.
this
Yeah.
year.
So
And-
see if you can replace them on the same exact, before it's investing in re-stabilizing the poles, which I'm guessing that would be just fine, but the nets are not, yeah.
So that's one small thing. The other thing is to get estimates for the redo.
Yeah.
Right.
And then
Yep.
share that around so we can talk about what's the total cost.
Mhm.
And so we can make some fundraising plans
Yep.
to help out, and some grant writing or whatever we can do, all those things.
Yeah.
So is that
We think it's
something that
doable.
the city, like how did that work with the pool? Is that something the city would do, or do we need like a champion?
Essentially, the nonprofit could do a good majority of the grants and the fundraising and the coordinating, and the city would essentially be a sponsor to accept those
We don't
funds
have a
and
nonprofit.
applicate.
We don't have.
Well,
Well, you can work through the community council.
Yes,
You could be
that's
a
what I was
fiscal
gonna
sponsor.
mention. Yeah, work with the Red Lodge Community Foundation. I think they assisted with the pool,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, they did.
fundraising too.
The high school could also probably apply for some grants.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
the same as the school is
Especially if
nonprofit.
you wanted to be able to start having home games.
Yeah.
How many courts would you need? How could you expand that so
Right.
that they could have home court here?
We could still host our own, something on 3 good courts, it's just that we were down to 2.
Yeah.
Acceptable, somewhat acceptable. And the net heights weren't necessarily regulation, which is hard to.
Yep.
But B-tennis, we're happy to play on the tennis.
I think somebody asked a question about, is there an opportunity or would there be a situation where you could expand into the
The green part.
green park
You know,
where
I
the
mean, I
ball
know it's
field
used
area
for
is?
like some T-ball games and stuff like that, but I mean, I don't know. If you could get some type of engineering study or architectural study or something, you know, to show
We
the
could
layout of,
fold that in to, you know,
An
estimates that we
estimate,
might
sure.
get and see
Yeah.
what
A
they.
couple
because
of
it's
options.
usually empty the
Right,
majority of the
yeah,
year.
right.
It's not,
Yeah.
And that could honestly be a good move, is getting someone to put together, as Mike likes to always put it, having shovel-ready projects
Mhm.
for grant, right, like for
Mhm.
grants.
Yeah.
So if we can get somebody who can put together and develop a plan
Mhm.
with drawings, budgets,
Mhm.
what would it take, all of those pieces,
That's
then
nice.
we have multiple entities that are trying to fundraise for it and can use essentially the city as a driver to get it done, but we have all the entities raise the funds
and
to
the
get it.
city, with the pool, we just passed a resolution forming that board
Right.
Yep,
that
Oh.
had the fundraising ability on behalf of the city,
Yep.
Oh,
is what we did. So
So that should go to city council.
it will, but
Yeah.
it needs to, but
At
what
what
might be.
point does that happen?
I think when we have a little bit more concrete, like, this is what we wanna do, this is what we're
And-
looking to do.
And
Once
we
you have
probably need
a
the high school
concept.
buy-in.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly, we're gonna need the different
Yeah.
organizations to really be.
Get all the stakeholders
Confirmed.
together. and-
Yeah.
Exactly. And then from that, probably creating that board and rules around that board where you want individuals from each one of those stakeholders, like, they're active.
Would it be useful to get a statement from the council of support? Pickleballers and.
I don't think we necessarily need that yet.
Maybe for grant writing.
I mean, for
Yeah.
grant
Yeah.
writing, but I think we have a whole nother
I think-
step before we
Yeah.
even get to
I
grant
think you have
writing.
several steps before you get there.
Yeah,
I think
so,
we need to come up with a concept and
correct.
some cost estimates of what that concept would.
Does the city have engineers on retainer? That could-
Kind of, but
question.
they're very expensive.
It'd be great if the city would do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be
Why don't-
lovely, but I think it's one of those things that can actually be a grant initiative, because, that is something that you can get grants specifically
Yeah.
for, is planning and feasibility.
Yep.
And I think if someone were to come up with the right tools for that, like, someone from this community that's using these facilities on a regular,
Mhm.
and find those grant opportunities, and having that person come in, the city could sponsor that grant to go and get that done. Because, I mean, that feasibility study could be tens of thousands
Yeah,
of dollars
Yeah,
potentially.
up to-
So,
Yeah, 40.
yeah, I mean, most feasibility studies that come across our table is around 20 grand.
Yeah.
So that's something that, again, we do have engineers on hand, but it's not gonna be something that's budgeted, that we can just have them go to work.
We had to ask.
Oh, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, sure.
And I'm just making sure that it's very clear, like, this is what we're up against.
Yeah.
So,
So why don't we do this? Mike obviously has some experience in the construction or the building of tennis courts back in Shoto. Why don't
I can talk to Mike.
both of us maybe sit
Yeah.
down and talk with Mike and kind of try to kickstart it with Mike first, and
And
it
he
might be,
able to
might be coming back, maybe we'll form a little committee,
Yeah.
you know, with the pickleball, somebody from the school district and tennis, and
Yeah.
see what we can move forward on.
and I'm sure that Mike could give some really good direction too for who would be a good person to contact for those types of studies. How do you want to approach,
Mhm.
like, he might have resources in his back pocket
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
already for folks to reach out to,
Yep.
so.
If
Well-
I can finish, I'm sorry.
Already, so, he's been through it already.
Exactly, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. Yep,
Great
that's it.
resource.
If I can just add something, we recently were down in Hot Springs, South Dakota, and they recently did everything that we are hoping to do. They took their tennis courts and basketball courts, and they were in terrible, terrible shape. And they've redone all the tennis courts, they put in 3 pickleball courts, they're in the process of adding 2 more pickleball courts, resurfacing their basketball courts.
Good.
Lovely.
And we were talking to some of the people involved, and they're mentioning like that AARP has grants.
Mhm.
There's a lot of money out there if you start looking for, and that's something that we can maybe contact. We play with some of the people that were involved and maybe get some hints as far as how did they raise the money
That's a great idea.
too, because again, they're ahead of us.
Yeah.
Everybody to use.
Any person who's done it before, always go to them first. They're always a wonderful resource.
Yep.
Yeah,
No reason to recreate the wheel or spin your wheels. Just
right.
talk to the people who've done it and see what you can glean.
Okay, good suggestion. All right. Do we move on? I don't think we really need to take any action here unless,
No, but it's
What
exciting.
about
There's a lot of action to take that's not here.
Buying
Yeah.
net. Well,
Just pass that on to-
Rod and I are gonna meet with Mike and
Yeah.
we'll talk about the.
Okay. Thank you.
Possibly get a new net. for
He's
this
helped
year.
out the pickleballers, I know. with-
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
And James with the cracks.
okay.
That's great.
Yeah.
thanks.
All right, let's move on to the next item.
Yeah.
The next item is a report and update on the Rocky Fork property. We're gonna ask the mayor to give us an update on that. Obviously, he's not here, he's at a
Yeah.
conference.
He did
Yeah.
text me, and he just said that there's no updates as of late.
Okay, very good. We'll move on to the county buildings on the west bench, lighting update. And Chelsea?
Yeah, so, also spoke to the mayor on that. After our previous meeting, he went forward and spoke with county commissioners about, the lights that have been put in, and his response was there were some safety concerns when lights were getting shot out at the county buildings. And it was the suggestion of law enforcement to leave the lights on and keep them on. That is the update that I have. If we wanted to move forward with approaching the county with doing downward facing lights, that's certainly something that we could approach. But that is the reasoning that was in place and why those lights are on.
So even though they were off, people were shooting them out.
Well, I think that even when some of them were on, and it might have been while they were in use, there might have been rodeo folks, I don't
Oh,
know the
okay.
ins and outs of that. This is just the update that I received.
Okay.
So, but it does sound like there were legitimate enforcement, or law enforcement concerns. So, that is where I am at.
All right. Any comments,
What,
questions?
like, what would be the next step then if, because obviously it's not sustainable to have them on all the time.
The
and
way
they're-
they are.
Yeah.
Right, so, essentially, if we wanted to move forward with talking with county, and I look over to Bill behind me, it would be one of those things where it's just making the request of, you know, what is the option of having downward facing lights? Would that be something that is within the county's purview and interest to do, as well as in the budget, just because we would like to preserve
Or dark sky.
the dark
Well,
sky?
Or motion sensor lights would be great.
Bill, I don't know, I don't wanna put you on the spot, but came here,
I figured so.
you came probably for this item, or?
I did, it was brought to my attention, I guess, it's not just one thing, and again, going back to wildlife, number of people, it is a safety issue. I mean,
Yeah.
There's a lot of bears around anymore, just is. And, with all that, and given the volumes of people, and again, the damage to our property, expensive. And
Yeah.
we have the sheriff's office looking into the law enforcement end to see the reasons why this is happening, but, it's what it is. You know, and again, specific to our new build on our county property up there, it's gonna be on hold insofar as lights being on for at least until the next budget year. There was concerns brought up by the neighbors that were addressed by my counterparts on the commission. They wanna have a concrete floor in there, which, fine, but didn't have it in the budget this year, so everything will be hooked up, it'll be functional, but there's just not gonna be anything on, at least until this time next.
So the question I have about lights being shot out, wouldn't lights that operate on a motion detector kind of prevent that from happening? I mean,
Good.
I mean, is that still an option that could be considered? Having intermittent lights that are operated by a motion detector? You know, somebody comes up, the lights will come on. I don't know if you have any kind of surveillance cameras or anything in
We do now.
those facilities. You do?
I mean, we do now, I mean, that's just the reality of what it is.
Did that help?
But again, going back to the expense, the facility's been there for 80 years, and I guess if somebody wants to alter the lighting system, show us the money.
Okay.
I mean, it comes down to that, and I don't wanna be confrontational.
No.
It's a facility that's been there for a very long time, and for the last 2-3 years, it's never been an issue.
But have the lights been on in the past all the time, or?
Yeah, different variations of the same.
Is there any potential of a temporary accommodation to the observatory and not turning them on during, is Virginia there tonight, or Teresa?
Yes.
Okay, so Teresa, I think last time you mentioned that on Fridays from dusk and for an hour and a half post dusk or after dusk is when the observatory is open.
We're normally there from dusk until we've been up there as late as 1:30, depending on how many people show up and what's being observed. It's really
Okay.
exciting when lights come up and everybody sticks around longer.
Okay.
And that's,
Every Friday night.
every Friday night.
So is there
So
a
it
way to do
doesn't
that?
really help to temporarily turn them off for that hour and a half. It would really need to be longer. Is that right?
Well, if they were on fixed time, you could just say, well, they're gonna come out at midnight and that's it. But I don't know if it's probably something that we need to talk to the county commissioners about separately. But the idea of us coming in to begin with was that this is a city amenity. It is enjoyed by the public, and those lights are really making a very detrimental impact to the viewing up there, as well as the safety and security of the people that are walking towards their cars and being blinded by those lights in their eyes. You can't see somebody standing right in front of you. So it's a concern for safety and security, just like you're saying it is among the county buildings. We haven't seen any bears. I don't know why in 80 years all of a sudden bears would be an issue. We all carry bear spray. We know how to do that. It's unfortunate that there seems to be a rash of issues at those county buildings all of a sudden. They've been up there when we cited the building. We hadn't seen them not turned down in 2 years. And it's understandable that they're on during rodeo or fairground days, but otherwise they've always been off.
Well, I guess what I'm hearing from you, Bill, is that there may be, some considerations for other type of lighting, maybe, shielded lighting, if there's money available and somebody could come up with the money to do that. Is that something that you think the
I think that's
county
the
would
discussions we
consider?
had. A lot of these issues could have been done on the front end.
Mhm.
But we're kind of being pushed against the wall a little bit, being forced into situations on the back end, having something stood up, and this issue's come up both at the city planning board. I think it's been discussed a little bit at the county planning board insofar as a cooperative zone to talk about these things, because right now, there really isn't anything. And so,
They've only been turned on since June, around the clock. And this building has been planned for over 2 years. I mean, we started with the Parks Board, we worked with the city council, we worked with everybody on the permitting and the whole bit. It doesn't seem that it seems that it's in relation to us putting a building there as a response from the county.
well, but there is and I don't want to speak outside and have a back and forth, because I know that's not really the function here, but again, going back to it, our facility is being used and rented more frequently. And it is our responsibility to make sure the facility is as safe as it can, because it is used at a maximum potential, rented out frequently, weekends for different functions across the board. And we do have a responsibility to that, our renters and the users of that. And again, going back to everything that's considered, again, the facility's been there for 80 years, and different derivations of lights have been there for all of those 80 years. To make 100 per, the 180 where it is right now, there's a cost to it. And speaking with the fair board that manages the facility itself, they go from year to year trying to scrape everything together, and the facility is looking better than it ever has. An extra expenditure, there's not an appetite for. If somebody wants to buy the lights to go on there, I mean, that's a different conversation, But again, going back to it, it's not a arbitrary thing for fun or anything like that. We have a duty, and our insurance requires that safety be top of the list for people who are renting.
What kind of activities are carried out there on a rental basis?
You have horse camp, you have dog camp, you have banquets, you have weddings, you have birthdays, you have anniversaries, reunions,
So it's like a little assembly hall.
Well, I mean,
Yes,
it
it's a-
depends on what it is. People go and use the show barn for, they wanna have a jackpot to show egg animals or whatever, or, you know, there's a lot of weddings that are used at the facility itself. It's getting used more frequently.
After 10 at night.
Yeah, so when it's occupied, that sure makes sense, that's
Sure.
motion lights would be.
Or even shielded lights.
Well, there are, adapters that you
Yeah.
can buy for your existing lights,
Yeah.
I think.
There are.
There are shields that you put on with 2 screws at either end of the light, and they
Mhm.
shield it downward only, which is actually safer and more secure. And it doesn't blind your guests and anybody that's trying to see as they're approaching the buildings or the lots or anything. It's actually better for everybody.
So how many lights total do we think are there
Yeah.
at the facility?
All of them, I don't know.
They're all on.
Well, so again, what it sounds like to me is you guys have genuine safety concerns to preserve the building, whether day or night. If you have people that are using the facilities for the full weekend and they have some of their ag animals there overnight, they have their own items, they have raffle items, they have wedding, again, rentals, all of those types of things. There's reasons to have those lights on overnight. I understand that. You guys have, or there's the reasons to actually have night sky shielded down. But there's also financial concerns for rodeo as well as county offices to put that in. So if we can come up with funding to get those items and get those installed, which it sounds like that is a conversation that the county is willing to have, where we can shield that, we just need to know, we need someone to do, again, step forward, put the due diligence in to figure out what that budget is.
Give us a cost.
Yeah, what's the cost, who's gonna cover it, and then how do we,
Yeah.
Is that a yes, that the county would work
it sounds
with?
like they're.
Would the county?
Well, I guess, let's hold on a second.
I didn't say it was a yes. I did not say
The front end of it.
No, I said that the conversation, is they're willing to have the conversation. Not willing to do it, but willing to have the conversation.
And
So-
we can't go back in time to change it.
Right.
But this facility, our property, those lights, they're there for 80 years. And to have something new now, and we've got to change everything for the new,
Yeah.
that doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
They haven't been on like this.
It's mostly the
But
lights
again,
on
these
the
all have
south
changes
end, I
within the
think, that
facility.
need shielded.
Pardon?
It's mostly, there's like 6, 8 lights on the south end that are the worst.
Well, and so here's the thing. We went through this with Northwestern Energy, right? The whole community just nonstop was calling Lisa Perry. They took the lights off. They said, we don't need the lights anymore, magically, okay? We don't need the lights anymore. Now, in place of those lights, now we have these lights. It's not just lighting up the south and Van Dyke Park, it's lighting up the whole west bench. You go up on the east and up 308, you can see it's added a whole nother level of lighting on top of Red Lodge. So it's not about just the observatory. It's about really, really bad offensive lighting that should be addressed for the health of everyone in this community and the security and safety. That's my bit.
But it seems like if the county is, as Chelsea's mentioned, would entertain the idea of an option of shielding the lights and if the money can come up, could be generated to complete that project outside of the county's coffers. I'm gonna have to paraphrase what you
Yeah,
said.
no, it's really,
Is that,
again, I think
is that worth exploring?
yeah.
I have no problem with that. Again, it's a conversation. But
Yeah.
the conversation has been with the Fair Board president,
Yeah,
and they're adamant that they want them on for all the reasons.
yeah, but they would still be on, but they would be redirected, you know, so they wouldn't be maybe obtrusive to another use.
We can definitely talk about it, but again,
That's a start.
it's
Yep.
a start. It is,
Yep.
but again, this is not a one-item issue, and it's more enveloped in what I think we all want to get into here, but at the end of the day, the facility's been there for a long time.
Yeah,
And, you know, if you want to have an observatory, or that's the issue with the observatory, you know, we can go back the other way and talk about ADA compliance and access. where it's an issue for the observatory
Not
itself.
for the
You know, we don't wanna go down a rabbit hole, you know, all the things that
Yeah.
go with it.
Let's
And
tackle
it's a
one issue at a
worthwhile
time.
thing, but again, I would offer if we're gonna have the conversation, find the money to do it, because those principles involved with the fair and the facility itself are opposed to it.
So who is the Fair Board president?
Melissa Oswald,
Who?
Melissa Oswald,
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So I don't really know what, like, the Parks Board role in next steps would be, if there's any action we would.
Well, just, continuing the conversation, I think, and seeing what we can find for, you know, downlighting some, at least some of the lights on the south end of the property.
I'm just guessing or thinking somebody would have to facilitate.
Yeah, and that, maybe that's our role as a park board, maybe we can facilitate it, and, Chelsea, maybe you could have some conversations with your fellow council persons and
Okay.
get a general feel if they think
Mhm.
that this is worth pursuing.
Yep. I'll bring it up at our next Public Works meeting, get that on the agenda.
I don't know, being on city council, and the admin committee, if we can actually use our budget money to pay for something that is not our own.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have
I
a
think we
feeling there
might-
wouldn't be much appetite from the
Yeah.
city
We're
to do
talking
that.
about facilitating the conversation, right?
Yeah, I know, I'm just saying,
She's
I
just
don't
putting
know.
it out there now, like, don't think that the
But,
city's gonna
but
be able to
that,
cover that.
that is,
Nobody
that's a
gets that.
Yeah,
potential
well,
issue.
it's just good to put
It
down.
possibly could be, yeah.
Yeah,
Typically, you don't spend city money
exactly.
on a county building necessarily.
But there may be other options.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, you might have to find other fundraising type options.
Yeah.
Has the city ever put any of those down shielded lights?
The ice rink has,
The ice rink,
yeah, we put them in last year.
and that was there too.
Do you have any idea what that
Yeah.
costs?
A lot. I can
Okay.
look.
Well, I think we've got,
No, they just put louvers on them.
Oh, okay.
I think we've got at least an idea of how to maybe
Approach it.
approach it, yes.
So next step is, you're gonna bring it up at the next
Public Works.
Public Works
Yep.
meeting.
Mhm. And,
Well, the Parks Board Parks has a budget. I don't know if that would.
It's still
again,
city
that's
money.
city money.
It's still
Yep.
city money,
That's true, okay, got it.
yeah. Okay.
What if we put lights on the pickleball courts?
Or we could build pickleball courts up by the observatory too.
Play up there, it's all lit up.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. I think we're straying here a little bit.
Yeah.
The next item is Arbor Day 2025 grants. And if you remember at the last meeting, Alan Best was here and he gave us four ideas. And Alan, are you with us?
He's down there.
Okay, good.
I am.
And, he gave us four, options or ideas for, 2025 Arbor Day grants. We deferred this to this meeting. We thought that everybody hopefully would have a chance to review his ideas and we could discuss them in a little bit more detail. I think it should be said that you don't have to, you could pick all four of these. You could say you like all four of them, you want to go with all four. You could say you don't like any of them. You prefer not to pursue any of them, or you could have ideas of your own too, that you would like to talk about for an Arbor Day program in the 2025 grant. I asked Madeline if she would just kind of go over a summary of the four items. And Alan, you can chip in as you'd like to as well.
Need the option to share your screen?
And yeah, she was gonna post them on the screen.
Oh, yeah, I mean, Alan talked about all these. I guess we can just look at it. I don't think we need to read through everything
Yeah.
again.
So option one, willow seedings. What's option two?
Yeah, well, let's talk about willow seedings for a minute. willow seedlings are commonly used as a method of stabilizing banks along waterways. They can be, be a very successful kind of long-term effort to complete bank stabilization. And it has been done. You can see the picture. I think is that across from Creekside
Yeah, they're
Park
all done.
on the coal slash hill there that was resculptured. And there were a lot of seedlings planted right along the stream there. I was down there the other day, and unfortunately, it doesn't look like the survival's been very good.
No, yeah, they talked about that at the meeting about the work they're gonna be doing across the creek, and basically said it's not a functional thing when you just put willows and riprap. Yeah, especially this next year when the creek's still kind of finding its way, there's gonna be a bunch of work being done across the creek.
Yeah. Well, and I think some of the idea was to not necessarily do it in that same location, but maybe upstream. But, I guess we have the same situation with riprap that was put along, just across from Rotary Park up there too. That might be, I'm not an expert on steam bank, work, but I have done a little bit of it. Maybe that is a project that needs to wait until after some time when you get some natural silt and dirt that kind of comes in and fills in that riprap. So you have a little bit of a soil base for your planting. The other concern I have, and I've just been giving this a little bit more thought here in the last week, is that as a project would probably have to happen after runoff. Because if you plant it before runoff, they could get washed away, during the runoff. And so you may want to plant it after runoff so they have a little bit of an opportunity to grow some roots and get a little bit of a foundation going in through the fall and into the next spring. My thought is that that's maybe not a practical project, even though I thought it was a great project initially.
It seems like it could be awesome, but not right at this point.
Yeah, in a couple of years when it's had a chance to settle in, build up a little bit.
When we know where the creek is.
I think it has limited potential for success, here in the next couple of years, so. Any comments? Alan, do you have any comments?
Just that the role that particular project might have played in an successful Arbor Day grant application would be that it does involve some volunteering. I'm not sure that they would give us money just to hire people to do stuff if we weren't to put any elbow grease, but no, I don't know anything about willow seedlings, but it sure seems like it's not historically always positive, like this quote about they all washed away last time, whenever that was.
Yeah, and I think you're correct that my guess is that any kind of a project that we would try to get funding through Arbor Day would have to have a volunteer component to it to justify the project. Do you agree, Alan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go back.
Oh, sorry.
I will just add on the willows that, from the city of Santa Fe, New Mexico, and the Santa Fe River, which has been an ongoing restoration project, and they have planted hundreds and hundreds of willows and other species. That maybe alder would work up here. And however, your point about soil, there's a lot of sandy soil that is washed down out of the Santa Fe Mountains. And I don't think it's gonna work here till we fill it in. So, but the willows do their job and slow the water down and prevent erosion.
Yeah, the banks definitely need a lot of stabilization, but
Yeah.
just haphazardly putting willows in doesn't seem like.
So.
I just realized that I'm not taking notes because I'm doing this.
Okay, you want me to do
I'll
this
just-
part of it then?
Or I could just put that we discussed. this
Yeah.
different-
Yeah. On hold.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second project is removal of dead hazardous trees, and Mike in his update gave us a little bit of a report on that. And, I can cover that.
Share that if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says, oh, okay, good. I don't think anybody can read it, though. I can barely read it on my computer, but I'll try to read it. Mike's comments were there are two, that he had sent along, attached two spreadsheets, and one of the spreadsheets are trees identified in the inventory as public safety concern. In parentheses, he said only 3, which would likely require a professional tree contractor to remove. And the other spreadsheet is one for trees identified as removal, in parentheses says 72. Most of the removal trees are very small and can be handled by the Public Works. We need to run through the removal list through a field inspection process of the 72 trees and determine what would be within the Public Works' ability to remove. The remaining would have to be removed by a professional contractor. He said that he thinks that they could kind of go through and, have you listed that up? Is that still up there? I can't
I can read it.
scroll down. Can you read it?
Yeah,
So,
could have a field inspection completed and a list of trees for removal by a contractor by the next Parks Board meeting in November, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
He has maps showing locations of all 75 trees, if anyone's interested in seeing that.
Yeah.
So, sounds like we could have something. I think he was interested in that aspect of a grant to Arbor Day Foundation to remove these dead and hazardous trees, so.
So question for you, Alan, is have you had discussions with Arbor Day about the probability of them funding a grant of this nature, a project of this nature?
Yes, and the answer was yes.
Okay, and even though it doesn't include replacing trees? Just the removal?
My discussion was in the context of a couple of other things, to include planting the willow seedlings, and I don't remember what the third thing was, but the answer was yes, in the context of several other projects, which might involve some elbow grease.
Okay. So that might be one that we could pursue. We can look at it. I think that one was favorably, kind of thought of favorably among the
They
board.
look bad, dead trees.
And it's dangerous,
Well-
like,
Yeah.
truly dangerous.
Some of them.
Yeah, they're hazardous.
Yeah, three of them are.
and I would definitely defer to Mike, because he's the one who's gonna have to do a bunch of work, so if he thinks that it can happen, then.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
And is there a way that we can do volunteer effort, where when the tree's down, volunteers can help haul?
Well, that's a good question.
Or are they just gonna have a trimmer there, or,
If they're little, I think it would probably.
yeah, it sounds like a lot of them are smaller,
Yeah,
so. I
most of
mean,
them are small enough
A
they,
lot of us can carry branches. I can do that.
yeah, obviously, I don't think we'd have volunteers involved in the,
Yeah, not the
in
cutting.
the larger trees that
Yeah,
we'd have to have a contractor take down.
yeah.
Okay. All right. And then,
Excuse me, Madam. So in relation to, cutting down trees, the foundation just announced they're starting up their firewood, for people, the firewood program again. There might be volunteers that would be happy to come and take that wood away and make sure it's processed for people that need it.
which foundation is
The
that?
community foundation.
Oh, the community
Yeah, they do a
foundation.
firewood, and they've worked with Public Works in the past. Again, this has been a few years now that I was really familiar, but they worked with Public Works to store wood and by pallets. And people would just come and get wood for their homes free of charge, that they could use to heat their home.
Oh, okay, all right,
That's a good use
Good
for the
point.
wood.
yes, it is. Good. Okay, the next, the other one is the community distribution trees. I think, Alan, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but I think you were looking at a similar project that we did this year, but probably on a little bit smaller scale, is that correct?
Yeah, significantly smaller, like a third to a quarter of the size.
Okay. And that would be both on the number of trees that are planted in public spaces and in the number of trees given away?
Actually, I think the latest iteration was in order to minimize demands on Public Works, that it would just be public free distribution of trees to the community with zero city trees to be planted by Public Works. But I mean, God, I know nothing about trees, so I mean, whatever you guys, I like to write grants.
Maybe you guys can get into help with it.
You're one of the few people I've ever heard
But
admit
I like
they
to
like to write
write
grants.
And honestly, from what we've heard through Public Works and also in the Public Works Department, tree distribution that just goes out to our community is absolutely the favorable option. Something that we can have a community meetup. People can take their trees throughout the day. Few volunteers running it. It takes a lot less coordination from a lot of ends. And also there's just concerns from our Public Works Department of, we did so many this year, they're not sure where we're gonna space for more.
Yeah.
So I think that in terms of a city standpoint, that just distributing out trees is wonderful. And I know that a lot of people really love that option and take advantage of it, and with a little bit of advertising, and we can even utilize that time to take advantage of presenting Parks Board missions and that kind of thing too.
Well, and we did, it was, countywide, right? It wasn't just Red Lodge, these last trees. And so maybe we need to do a better job of, you know, making sure Bridger, Fromberg, you know, all the smaller communities who were also, you know, hit by the flood, know that they can pick up trees.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Just need to make sure they know this time.
Yeah, like Chelsea said, I think we could incorporate a pretty significant volunteer effort in that project as well.
This might be something that we would want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
On a much smaller scale.
Yeah, smaller scale. We'll get rid of dead trees and we'll give people new ones to replace them.
Sounds good.
Now, one of the requirements of being a Tree City USA, which we are, is to have an annual Arbor Day ceremony. And I think we've had those in the past, pretty much every year, an annual Arbor Day ceremony. Usually that also involves a tree planting, at least one tree planting in a park or someplace. And one of the requirements is that normally you have the mayor or a member of the governing body read a proclamation, so that maybe we could work that into that community tree project too.
Okay.
Might be that we can plan it at a potential new park on the river.
Pardon me?
Oh.
Yeah. I don't think we'll be ready for that, but I mean, it's a good idea.
Yeah, there you go. Replace that one.
Is there any more, like, do we have any more need to do the tree inventory and or just assess generally around town the health of trees? Like, is that something that we could get any sort of guidance or funding for and get volunteers involved in that? If there was like a certain list of criteria to look for, and kind of disperse people around town to sort of do the assessment essentially?
I think from what I understand, is we really wanted to show that we are utilizing the pre-existing inventory that we have.
Which is excellent.
But again, it's been underutilized, and so we want to show that we're utilizing that plan before we try to take on a new assessment.
And there have been addendums when we've added trees to the plan. I think that's probably what we would want to do, because Teresa and Jen Lyman, they all did such a great job. I was so impressed with that inventory.
It's a well-done inventory.
You wouldn't want volunteers just willy-nilly walking around inventory, because not everybody knows what kinds of trees there are.
I was very impressed with that.
That was great.
But I think we, you know, considering how many trees we just planted, I think we need to add that to the inventory somehow.
Well, the trees were removed too.
Yes, exactly.
So that could
And
be
so
something,
that's
Sarah,
up
so we
to
have
date and
qualified
accurate?
volunteers.
What, Sarah?
Is that up to date and accurate? I'm sorry, I thought it was from like 2014 or something. So have we been,
2017.
okay,
And there,
so,
I think there've been addendums a couple of
Okay.
years,
okay,
when we've added or removed trees, so.
So again, Sarah, I think we could use qualified volunteers that, you know, like Teresa or people that know.
Jen Lyman.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was like any sort of training
But again,
or.
you see what I'm saying, there's people that have done this before.
We had software and tablets and.
So yeah, we have like
And all
2
that.
or 3 volunteers that are trained for doing so. That could be volunteer efforts that we put forward. It wouldn't be, again, as mentioned, as anyone shows up, it's like, well, these are the trees I have in my yard, and.
All right, moving on then, moving on. Thanks, guys.
Okay. All right, so comments. What's the board's
And when do we need to
desire
have,
here?
decisions on this, Alan?
What does the grant process look like, Alan?
Mid-January is their historical early bird deadline, which gets a preference, and so obviously we'd want to decide on our ballpark strategy, sort of review it with them to make sure that's something they would consider, including our sort of quasi-volunteer roles, and then actually write the grants. So work the math backwards. But
Well, Alan, would you be willing to talk to the ADF and tell them that the board is kind of interested in the 2 options of the tree removal, hazardous tree removals and dead tree removals, and smaller version of the community tree project, and see how that flies, and then maybe we can all put our heads together and come up with a project that could help you in the writing of the grant.
yeah, sure, that all sounds great. I'll reach out to them, and Roger, I'll probably update you with the findings if it indicates a dead end to update the board, or otherwise we'll continue working down that path, and we have a couple months to do so.
Very good. All right. Good.
Yeah, so for Tree City USA, that annual grant is due in a couple months. And we didn't apply for it last year, but we should this year, just to keep our Tree City and,
Our status.
Designation.
yeah, and what's the, no, like, it's, there's like a next level of Tree City that when you've done a bunch of stuff that year that you can apply for, that we should apply for again, because we
Yeah,
definitely
it's
called
kind of like an enhanced designation.
Yeah, I forget what it's called, but,
Starling.
I can, unless Alan wants to do it, I can apply for that, because it's done it a couple of years, but does that like affect any of the other grants with the Arbor Day Foundation, or how does that?
Well, that's just an application for the
Right.
designation. Yeah.
Oh, the Growth Award.
The Growth Award, that's
Yeah.
what it should. And, really, we should qualify for that.
Yes, we definitely will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know anything, so probably not my wheelhouse.
I will do that.
So Madeline, you gonna take a look at that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. All right, do we need an action on this? Board has decided on?
Not yet.
Yeah, I think the board is recommending that we look at those 2. Alan's gonna look in and make sure that tracks with Arbor Day, and
And
from
then
there, we can do
the city council needs to be
Yeah.
informed, right? Or
Yeah, and-
at the appropriate time.
Yeah, so, and this has been a discussion we've had at all of our public works meetings, so, we're pretty well, like, on board with the situation, and, again, just mostly, once we have the actual project in place, then we can put the resolution in place to apply.
Okay, all right. Any comments?
Good meeting.
What's that?
It was a good meeting.
Well, we have one more item.
Oh, good.
Future agenda items.
What is it?
Future agenda items.
Luke, from BRTA, or BT, is gonna be here next month to talk about the pump track again.
Okay, Luke.
And do we know what's happening with feasibility study for Brewery Hill?
Haven't gotten any yet.
Just wondering.
I know that the city council's on board and, moving forward on it from that end, so.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Any other items? I got a question for the board. In the past, has we done goal-setting priority sessions? Has the board ever done an annual goal-setting session?
We did, at least when
Well, usually typically, Courtney would do an annual report of everything that the board has done.
Uh-huh.
And then with that, they would have a list of future priorities.
Okay,
And the board would help write that report.
okay. Is that based on the fiscal year or on the calendar year?
Do you remember, Tracy, you were on council when?
So, when it's due, they usually get to read out in January. Yeah, and because December, everything is happening all at once, and then it's canceled last meeting, and then January starts out fresh with, this is what was done. But I wanted to add that, the Parks Board usually was invited to contribute to the, CIP. Things, but like if you're goal setting, or there's things you need to purchase for your capital projects, you start packing those into or submitting them to the city for inclusion with the CIP.
Okay.
That kind of goes hand in hand
Yeah,
with what you're asking.
yeah. So do we need to add that as a future agenda item?
Yeah, I would definitely get up with, Mike on that, because they're redoing the CIP right now, and
Okay.
so, I mean, and that would all be part of, it's your capital improvement project.
Right,
So that would definitely be, they'll put together, the engineers will go through and put together a list of everything that needs to be done, and the timeline and how much it's gonna cost to do that, so that would be a great place to maybe include.
why don't I get together with Mike, I've got several items.
Because that's a big capital improvement project.
I can talk to Mike about the timing on that, we can look at when we meet with him. Okay, all right. So that might be a November, or December item. Okay, right. Right. Okay, we're back to, citizens' comments on matters with the board, within the board's jurisdiction again, 3-minute maximum. Yes.
Karen Walmsley, 24 Spruce Lane. I just want to say that I'm encouraged by the potential discussion amongst the city, the county, and the observatory to move forward. Hopefully, there can be a positive resolution. I go to the observatory several times a year. I went to the observatory and enjoyed the night sky earlier this year and was a bit shocked when I got up there in June and the lights were blaring. So I just want to say that it is a valuable resource, and I hope we can all work together. I think that's an excellent goal in finding a positive solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you to the Parks Board for your offer to facilitate this matter. It really is important to protect the amenities of the city and hopefully find a resolution that all parties can be satisfied with. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, just a second, Tracy, sorry. The motion to